Now, from WYDC TV, this is Big Fox News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Anna Manuel. Let's start with a look at the local election results from the Chemung and Steuben County races. In Chemung County, the Republican candidates won 13 of the 15 legislature seats. Lawana Morse, Michael Saglabine, Tom Sweet, and Joseph Brennan are winners. Mark Margison, Joseph Donovan, James Palmer, and Steve Pickering also won. John Burren, Martin Chalk, Brent Sturmer, and Bill McCarthy won. Scott Drake, Michael Smith, and Rodney Strange won their races. And the Chemung County redistricting proposition was passed. As for Steuben County, the redistricting proposition was voted against. And in the Corning City Council 3rd Ward race, Jeffrey Clark was declared the winner. In Pennsylvania, the race for the Senate between Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman and Dr. Mehmet Oz has been called by the Associated Press. Fetterman is likely to win after getting over 50% of the vote. Dr. Oz getting 47%. This was a closely watched race throughout the nation as both Republican and Democratic parties spent millions on it. We're still waiting on results for a few critical races that are too close to call, including Senate seats that are still up for grabs. This as Republicans were optimistic about a red wave and they're holding out hope for control of the House. Madeline Rivera has the latest from Washington.
The votes have been cast in the 2022 midterm elections, but the red wave didn't crest.
This wasn't even a red wave. It's not even a red little ripple in a pond.
An anticipated surge by GOP candidates fizzled as the midterm results were revealed. Still, the Republicans had a strong enough showing, likely leaving President Biden without the backing of a Democratic-controlled House. Kevin McCarthy plans to run for Speaker if Republicans take the majority.
The Republican Party just did not give people a viable alternative to Democrats in this race.
But the Senate remains up in the air, with multiple seats, including Georgia and Arizona, still up for grabs. Neither candidate in Georgia's Senate race received more than 50% of the votes so far.
There is one race in our state that is going to be moving to the December 6th runoff. That is the race for the United States Senate.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis turning the Sunshine State a deeper shade of red, winning a second term with the widest margin in 2 decades. The Republican making history winning Miami-Dade County, a Democratic stronghold, a feat last accomplished by Jeb Bush in 2002. DeSantis may even be gearing up for an epic clash with former President Trump over a possible White House run.
You look at these candidates who stand for freedom, who stand for business, who do all of these candidates of action. That's where the momentum is. It's not coming from Donald Trump in the past. It's coming from the future.
Meanwhile, Fox News voter analysis shows 3/4 of voters feel the country is headed in the wrong direction. In Washington, Madeline Rivera, Fox News.
The close Senate race was not the only big race in the Keystone State. Democrat Josh Shapiro defeated Republican Doug Mastriano in the state's governor's race. Shapiro, the state's current attorney general, secured nearly 56% of the vote compared to Mastriano's 42%. Governor Kathy Hochul making history in New York by becoming the state's first female elected governor. She defeated Republican challenger Representative Lee Zeldin. The governor secured nearly 53% of the vote. Zeldin got 47%. The governor spoke about the victory at her campaign headquarters last night. The congressional race in the 23rd District has come to a close. Our Maggie Hall has exclusive footage from Buffalo as supporters gathered for election night watch parties.
Congressional candidate Nick Langworthy posted these photos and caption to his Facebook, affirming his win over opponent Max Delapia. The caption for the photographs of Langworthy, his family, and supporters reads, "Thank you, New York 23. I am honored to have earned your trust to fight for the Southern Tier and Western New York in Congress. I will not let you down." Last night at the Irish headquarters in Buffalo, members of the Democratic Party had their energy high while waiting on results.
Here in Buffalo, energy is high, as I'm sure you can hear quite around me, as folks wait for some of the results from the polls to roll in.
Shortly after this, Democratic candidate Max Delapia announced his concession to Langworthy in the race.
Last but not least, I want to thank all the voters who trusted me with their vote. While I regret not being able to serve you in Congress, I can assure you the effort to run was worth it. It's always important that we provide voters a choice, even when the odds are against us.
Towards the end of the speech, Dela Pia addressed his opponent and victor of the 23rd congressional race, Nick Langworthy, stating the following.
In closing, I want to extend my best wishes to the people of New York's 23rd District, to their new congressman, and to his family.
Big Fox reached out to Mr. Langworthy for comment, but did not receive an immediate response. Maggie Hall, Big Fox News, Buffalo.
Multiple fire departments responded to a fire that broke out at a local restaurant. Big Fox's Josh Feldberg was at Reese's restaurant in Waverly today.
This is all that is left of Reese's restaurant after a fire broke out yesterday evening. The blaze required assistance from multiple departments across the area to be extinguished. South Waverly, Sayre Volunteer, Athens Borough, Athens Township, and Waverly Barton departments were all in attendance. According to the Bradford County Department of Public Safety, fire crews used numerous techniques to control the fire, but were met with an increasing flame and heat. Crews attempted an aggressive interior attack, but were met with challenges. Additional manpower from the North Towanda and Towanda Volunteer Fire Departments were called in. Firefighters on the scene were met with an outpouring of community support. Food donations were delivered from Sam's Bar and Grill, Lane's Beverage, the Spring Street Dandy, and more. The fire ultimately consumed the restaurant and the attached apartment. At this time, there is no update on the start of the fire or if there were any injuries. The Department of Public Safety stated, "Our heartfelt prayers to the Reese family and the employees of the beloved, iconic community staple." Josh Feldberg, Big Fox News, Waverly.
Floridians bracing for what's expected to become a rare November hurricane. The heavy rain and gusty winds are anticipated to reach inland areas. Nicole Valdez has more.
Storm Nicole inched closer to Florida's east coast Wednesday morning, prompting hurricane warnings for millions of people. It's expected to make landfall later in the day as a Category 1 storm. People here are bracing for heavy rain and damaging winds.
The one thing we know about the storm predictions is the unpredictability of those. We prepare for the worst while we hope for the best.
Early Wednesday, the storm pummeled the Bahamas, leading to a dangerous storm surge.
We expect a king tide and then eventually a high tide, and the surge being generated from that storm, you can have quite a bit of water.
Forecasters say parts of Florida's coast could see several inches of rain and storm surge of up to 5 feet. Evacuation orders are in effect for some barrier islands and other low-lying areas. Officials say some of these places are at greater risk for flooding following Hurricane Ian. Up and down the coast, people shuttered windows and stored boats ahead of Nicole's arrival. Orlando International Airport planned to shut down commercial operations until conditions were safe. Some people say after Ian, they're not taking any chances.
There's still quite a bit of debris laying around, which could be projectiles.
They put boards on the roof and nailed them and glued them, and that tarp's not going anywhere.
Now, forecasters do expect this storm to weaken as it moves across the southeast. In West Palm Beach, I'm Nicole Valdez, Fox Weather.
Stay with us. More news and your complete forecast are straight ahead.
Here's your local stock market update from Big Fox. Now, your Twin Tiers forecast from Big Fox.
The small switch in the weather pattern didn't last long as we were dealing with those near record temperatures over the weekend. We saw a little pullback to seasonal for our Tuesday, but today we were back into those 50s and even low 60s in some locations. Now we'll note that we stay pleasant and clear through the overnight. Still a southerly wind tapping into the region, keeping us under those more warmer conditions for this time of the year. As we still drop into the 30s, we are about 5 to still 10 degrees above average for lows as the Finger Lakes hold within the 40s. Now, what we'll note, though, is that that's another mild start to the day, and it's going to be the last day that is going to have these very pleasant conditions. We're going to have the sunshine and the warmth around all day on Thursday. Now, there still will be some warmth around on Friday, but the rainfall is going to move in. It's going to be widespread rainfall for the Northeast, is what we're seeing is a cold front that is moving out of the Great Lakes is going to merge with the tropical system of Nicole, and that's going to bring an abundant moisture to the Appalachians and up into the Northeast. So flooding concerns are starting to be messaged. Now, it's preliminary numbers, but there are some isolated feedbacks that are showing that upwards of 4 inches or more could be possible in isolated locations. So we'll watch those numbers. But here's what we're going to see set up. Enjoy your Thursday. Get out and do any of those fall activities, maybe do some fall pickup as well, with temperatures climbing into those lower 60s. So similar to today, maybe even a few degrees warmer. We'll note that as we have widespread temperatures across the area into the 60s, a few locations off towards Pennsylvania, a little bit cooler. But for the most part, everybody has quiet and pleasant conditions. Little breezy. We'll detail that here in a moment. But note that by Friday, we're turning into the wet weather pattern. Still mild temperatures. We still have the 60s. The cold front hasn't made its passage yet. That's going to occur late on Friday. But you do see the rain and the storm chances move in. So here's what we're seeing. Here's that cold front that's moving out of the Great Lakes. Behind it is windy and cold conditions. Post-tropical Nicole is going to be working its way up the Appalachians. And this is Friday evening. So we're still ahead of that cold front, but that moisture is starting to spread in. And then overnight Friday into Saturday morning, when that cold front pushes through, that's when the heaviest rainfall accumulation is expected. So at least through 7 p.m. on Friday, we're showing that anywhere from a half an inch to an inch is possible. But there's going to be still more rain in that overnight forecast. So we'll watch how these numbers change. But at least 1 inch to 2 inches is the preliminary forecast here for the Finger Lakes into Elmira and Corning. Also note that the frontal system brings some breezy conditions. So we have that southerly wind Thursday and Friday, giving us those 60s. But then that northwesterly wind moves in on Saturday, and that's going to quickly drop those temperatures. So we see 53, which is seasonal, but then by Sunday, even with some still lingering precipitation, we could have some wintry mix, as we'll see highs into the 40s, lows into the 20s, and even a few days, we could be seeing highs hold within the 30s, as it looks like this is going to be a cold weather pattern that will hang on, as we will continue to talk about some wet weather to move back in again as early as Tuesday.
The largest layoffs in the tech sector so far this year. Disney has a streaming problem, and McDonald's makes a grease-proof gaming chair. CJ Papa has today's business briefs.
Mark Zuckerberg laying off thousands of Facebook employees. The cuts are expected to total more than 11,000 workers, or 13% of its staff. Zuckerberg told executives he's accountable for the social media giant's missteps. That includes overstaffing. Zuckerberg specifically mentioning cuts to recruiting and business teams. Facebook parent company Meta says it will provide at least 4 months' salary as severance. This is Meta's first mass layoffs ever. The Walt Disney Company continued to lose money on its streaming service in the summer quarter and plans to cut spending on programming. Disney says it will make cuts in marketing and content budgets after its weaker-than-expected earnings. Losses in its streaming business offset the strong performance of the company's theme parks like Cars Land in Anaheim, California. And McDonald's unveils its first grease-proof gaming chair. It's packed with fast food-friendly features like a French fry holster, dip holders, a hot box for your burgers, and grease-proof leather. One lucky customer will get one free. The only catch, you have to live in Great Britain.
Listen up, music lovers. This could be your chance to own a piece of history. Sean Langille takes a look at some of the iconic objects from music legends that are getting ready to hit the auction block.
Music lovers could soon own iconic items from some of the industry's biggest stars, as Julian's Auctions gives a sneak peek at some of the lots about to go on sale. One item expected to rake in serious dough is a 1973 Fender Mustang guitar, played, signed, and destroyed by Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain.
This guitar was actually smashed in Williamsburg, Pennsylvania, 1989. Estimated 200 to 400,000. He's actually written on the guitar, you know, if we can't have rock and roll, then throw my in jail.
Beatles member John Lennon is also represented with a pair of his iconic glasses up for sale.
We sort of identified John Lennon as wearing those type of round granny glasses, as he called them.
The auction also includes this beehive hairpiece once belonging to Amy Winehouse. She wore it during the 2008 Grammys, where she performed and won 5 awards, including Best New Artist.
The auction estimated 10 to 20,000.
A piano belonging to Bob Dylan, one of Prince's guitars, and a Bob Mackie dress worn by Cher are also some of the more than 1,500 items hitting the auction block.
The stock market is in flux, the bond market is in flux, the real estate is in flux, so people are sort of taking their money out of sort of intangible items and choosing to own something cool, something that they can relate to.
The auction takes place in person at New York City's Times Square Hard Rock Cafe and online at julianslive.com November 11th, 12th, and 13th.
Still ahead, leaders attending the United Nations Climate Change Summit say many businesses calling themselves climate-friendly are making bogus claims. A look at some of the new guidelines corporations need to adhere to in order to be considered truly net zero. When a business goes net zero, the company is canceling out the amount of greenhouse gases it emits with the amount removed from the atmosphere. But according to United Nations officials, many companies are misleading customers with claims that they're more sustainable than they actually are. Ted Lindner takes a look at some of the new guidelines corporations need to adhere to in order to be considered truly net zero.
Are the businesses advertised as net zero, as climate-friendly as they claim to be? Leaders attending this year's United Nations Climate Change Summit say not so much.
There's some cynicism about whether these pledges are real.
Citing an alarming trend in companies making false claims they emit zero greenhouse gases or have plans to become net zero, when in reality they don't come close.
The reason you're seeing everyone from oil and gas companies to consumer goods companies to banks saying they're net zero is because they think that that's good for business.
The concerns prompting action, with UN officials on Tuesday announcing strict recommendations to hold businesses accountable.
So if you say you're net zero, I'm a high ambition on climate, you can't be continuing to invest in new sources of fossil fuel supply.
In addition, companies can invest in deforestation projects or offset their emissions by purchasing carbon credits, which allows them to still emit certain levels of CO2 and methane gases, with those amounts decreasing over time.
You can't just buy cheap credits, often with low integrity, instead of reducing your own emissions. You actually have to do the work.
Officials hope this will force companies to devise concrete plans to fulfill their net zero claims and create transparency for consumers looking to purchase from environmentally conscious corporations.
November is usually one of California's worst months for major wildfires. But so far, the state has seen far fewer than usual. Tom Vicar has more on why this could be happening.
It's astonishing how little of this has plagued the Golden State so far this year. Recent rains in California have made traditionally huge November fires far less likely.
We're really starting to see the tide turn from being in a response mode to the fire problem to be in a proactive mode to try to minimize the impacts of it.
Deep into 2022, Mother Nature keeps blessing California with more favorable weather, fewer extreme heat spells, and wind events aided by more humidity. Add in overwhelming fast responses from ground crews, air crews, and huge mutual aid. Equally important, community fire reduction programs and property owners who reduced or eliminated a lot of the risk through defensible space clearing and house hardening against fires.
There's a hyper awareness and a lot of vigilance amongst property owners.
So far this year, CAL FIRE and the U.S. Forest Service have battled almost 7,300 wildfires. But that's 890 fires less than this time last year, and 188 fewer fires than the 5-year average. This year, California lost just over 362,000 acres to wildfires. That's about 12 times the acreage of San Francisco County. But that's just 14% of last year's almost 2.5 million acres lost to wildfires, and only 30% of the 5-year annual average of 1.2 million acres.
So when you have a very small number, you can throw a lot of resources at it.
As to drought, the state's 6 giant mega reservoirs, Shasta, Oroville, Trinity, New Melones, Don Pedro, and San Luis, average only 33% of their normally 54% full this time of year. That's way, way low. And many people, farms, businesses, and critters will suffer if we have another dry winter. Example, Valley Water in the South Bay.
We use about half of our water comes from outside of the county to Santa Clara County. So we rely on those reservoirs to supply water to Santa Clara County residents and businesses. So if those reservoirs are impacted, we're severely impacted here in Santa Clara County.
Stay with us. We'll have more right after the break. We want to leave you with a smile. Sweet lovers are in luck. Krispy Kreme just released a treat you might not be able to resist. The chain is selling its new mini donuts featuring 16 tiny pie flavors inspired by Thanksgiving. The mini box also comes with some mini original glazed donuts. Fans who want to get their hands on these treats can buy them at Krispy Kreme locations nationwide for a limited time. I'm Scott Beadle. Thank you for watching.